Hello, Sex Geeks! It's the Sex Geek t-shirt. I'm Reid from ReidAboutSex.com, founder of Sex Geek Summer Camp.
I'm Cathy from theintimacydojo.com.
Also employed by a secret corporation that we cannot name.
Yes.
Somewhere in San Jose.
Not far from here, as a matter of fact.
Maybe named after some sort of non-animal product that's on the food pyramid.
Broccoli.
Could be named after a vegetable. Perhaps something else. Today, as you see, we have the Sex Geek Summer Camp t-shirt on, which means we're recording a video about business. And this one might actually not go on YouTube. This one might go into Sex Geek School for Gifted Sex Geeks, because this might be a longer conversation than 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So this becomes a training video.
And it's actually, this is a more advanced, it's a black belt move.
Black belt move?
Yeah, it's like something you consider when you've got the basics in place.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, I didn't worry about it for a while, so.
What are we talking about? They don't even know what we're talking about.
They're
just listening still because they believe in us.
No, they've probably already left.
They've already left.
If you're still here, why? No. We're going to talk. We're talking about what format, what entity you want to create your business as. Mm-hmm. Whether you want to be an LLC, a sole proprietor, an S corp, or a new entity that we're quite excited about, an LLC with an S corp writer.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're actually letting you behind the scenes because Reid is trying to decide. I'm following.
Cathy's already decided.
Yes, I'm just.
And she's waiting patiently for me because she can get a better deal if she registers both of us at the same time.
Yes.
Because Cathy is shrewd.
Well. And
smart.
Yes.
And you should listen to Cathy because Cathy has good advice.
Sometimes.
And we're going to preface this by saying, do not take just our advice. Mm-hmm. Go talk to somebody who is a business professional, a tax attorney.
We are not attorneys, tax or otherwise.
And find out, ask around to some of your businessy-minded friends, or perhaps somebody who's really good at business in another field, and ask them their opinion. Have a conversation about what we're going to talk about today, which is, do you stay a sole proprietorship? Do you incorporate? Do you become an S corp? Do you become an LLC? What do you do with your business?
And realize each state has different rules, mm-hmm. and where you incorporate and how you incorporate will change. So we're going to give you the advice or our suggestions and information based on what we've researched. I've lived in Texas. I've incorporated in Delaware and in Texas, and I'm now in California, and I've researched it.
Have you ever lived in Delaware?
No. Okay.
Then why would you incorporate in Delaware, Cathy?
For tax purposes.
Really? Tell us about this.
There's a couple states, Nevada and Delaware especially, they're known as good tax havens, basically. And they purposely set this up. But you have to hire someone to manage this, to be a receivership there. Some part of your business has to be there, even if it's a P.O. box.
What's a receivership?
Someone to receive the documents and any mail that might come to you.
Like an aunt or an uncle?
It can be. They actually have services that will do this for you in those states. Now, do
not pick an X.
No, because they might be throwing it away. Hmm. In some states like California, it makes no difference to do that because they don't care if you earned it in another state. They want you to. If you're living there, you need to pay it.
Anyone who incorporates in California, no one comes to California to incorporate. California is not a tax haven
at all
by any standards, and depending on the advice you get. And mostly depending on where you live, some states are really hard on you if you live there and then you try to set up your company as a receivership in another state. California is one of them.
Right. So one of the reasons I set it up originally in Delaware is I'd done the research, and Delaware had very favorable business laws, meaning it was hard to be sued unless you'd really done something wrong, and that the taxes were relatively low. Mm-hmm. However, the hassle of doing it was just not worth it. So I eventually dissolved my LLC in Delaware and started a new one in Texas.
And what kind of when you say hassles, what do you mean?
I had to pay someone to be the receiver of an email. I had to file a special tax. I had to pay Delaware taxes. So I was saving a little bit of money in Texas, but I was still having to pay some into Delaware. And at least for the level of the amount of income I had, it just wasn't worth the extra having to track another thing in another location and pay someone to do that.
So my my non-expert advice, because I'm still a sole proprietor, and some of my friends who are quite wealthy and self-made wealthy folk, and, you know, in other industries, the advice that a lot of people think that I take, which is wrong, is the idea that if you don't own anything, there's really nothing for anybody to sue you over, because suing you is usually, unless somebody's trying to make an example out of you, and Cathy already has her disagreement face on, if you can see this, that people sue you because they can get something from you. So I don't own a home. I don't even think the title of the vehicle that I drive is in my name. I think it's in my partner's name. I rent. The only thing that you could really take from me up until the last couple of years would be my intellectual property, and most people wouldn't know what to do with that, so they wouldn't come after that. If somebody was suing me to come after my intellectual property, then it would be somebody who knew why they were coming for me for that. And, you know, if you don't have a lot of money in the bank, there's really nothing for anybody to take from you. So a lawyer is going to look at your situation and be like, I wouldn't sue him because there's nothing to get, and the lawyer needs to get paid.
Yeah.
So in some ways, you remaining broke keeps you safe. However, if you actually want to build a thriving business, and, you know, build wealth so that you can do more things with it, you need to start considering these conversations. So I would recommend, wherever you are in your journey, start having these conversations with people who are further down the road than you, so that you get a bunch of different opinions, not one opinion or two opinions from one video that you then base all of your business decisions on.
Yeah, but we hope to give you a snapshot and some guidelines. Most people start off as a sole proprietor. I did as well. There's nothing wrong with that. If you or your partner, or even some of your business partners, have assets, having the LLC or some kind of corporation gives you a wall between you and other people, as long as you follow the correct paperwork. Mm-hmm. If you don't keep certain things separate and track certain things, it doesn't count. But what it does is, if, for example, Reid had an LLC and I sued him, I could sue for corporate assets, but I can't sue him for his retirement fund or his
car or home.
Yeah, his pet
my children
collection.
My children, because you would come after my children if I hadn't.
Yeah.
Everyone wants my children. See what I did there? That was funny. Not at all. Yeah, so basically corporations and LLCs, the limited liability company kind of thing, creates a wall where people can't get at your personal stuff. And for my friends who are quite wealthy, who have been sued, every one of them has said, when they sue my company, they come and sue me too personally. So some of that advice is, it doesn't matter. They're coming after you personally anyway. If they've already hired a lawyer, the lawyer is going to come after your company, and they're going to come after you personally, which really harkens back to be amazing, give great customer service,
get insurance,
be ethical, get insurance and things like that when you run events, cover your ass so that you can take care of things as you become more and more and more successful. And when, God forbid, a mistake actually happens and you actually are the liable one, because we're all human too.
Another reason to do an LLC or a corporation, as you start getting more well known, you've had people say, I don't want to write a corporate check out to Reid Mahalco. It seems strange. They want to write it to an LLC or a corporation. It's easier. It kind of looks a little bit more legitimate for taxing and for a corporation, and it gives you a certain credibility for many people.
I have no credibility.
I know. That's why we're trying to get you a corporation.
I'm going to sit here and tell you, you can be successful and and stay a sole proprietorship. You're fine. If this conversation is going to create so much stress for you that you lock up, it means you're not ready. Mm-hmm. And I want this conversation to start getting you ready to be able to talk about this stuff so that you can start to notice when it is time.
Yeah.
If you are starting to generate a lot of revenue, if you're starting to hire people, even if they're just individual contractors and virtual assistants and things like that, you might want to start considering LLCing, or what we're going to recommend, which is an LLC with an S Corp writer. Because once you get over the hump of taking care of the paperwork, and we all need to get better at doing paperwork and not feeling paralyzed around taxes and government forms and things like that, you getting over those things is like how you coach other people to get over the weirdness and the anxiety of talking about their wants, needs, and desires. If you really want to be a successful business person, and then be able to have conversations with other successful business people who will then bring you into their companies to teach or have you on their stages for their live events, start practicing getting savvy and comfortable talking about this stuff, even if you're still uncomfortable about it. And I still get uncomfortable about it. You're not going to be the first person who's ever registered themselves as an LLC with an S Corp writer who was anxious and nervous while doing it. It's okay, and we need to put on our grown-up pajamas at some point and start putting into motion the things that we need to have together so that we can be successful.
So in terms of forming an LLC, it's actually pretty simple. It takes about 30 minutes. You can do it online. I recommend as a first baseline pass, do it in the state you're in. California, for instance, there's no advantage to do it anywhere else. It's just a lot of extra hassle. And
it's like $600 or $800 every year. You have to pay California.
California requires minimum tax for an LLC or an S Corp is $800. I believe you have to pay right at the time when you file. Mm-hmm. For an LLC. For an S Corp, you have like 3 months to pay.
I'm just going to say, if you don't have enough revenue coming in
to justify that,
to do that, like to write the check, then you're probably not ready. And you shouldn't worry about it, but still have these conversations so you get comfortable with it.
In terms of the paperwork, you can actually get forms online, and all it is once a quarter you fill out a sheet indicating where you are and like that you're actually focusing on a business. So it's not a hobby that you're just using for a tax write-off, basically. It doesn't take a lot of time. You do need to have those gathered together if they ever audit you, because if you're ever sued, because that's one of the parts of the wall. If you don't have those, they're like, you're just using this as a way to try to hide from people.
Mm-hmm. Other reasons you might want to start considering LLC, and what we're going to advise, which is LLC with an S Corp writer, is you can then start paying yourself a salary, in ways where you don't get taxed on all the income that comes in a given year, as you do as a sole proprietor. So for me as a sole proprietor, if I make $200,000 this year, then net, then I'm getting like that all gets reported unless I'm, dealing in a lot of cash and trying to hide that, which becomes problematic when and if you get audited.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything more about that. What I am going to say is going into an LLC with an S Corp writer, you can then pay income tax on what you get paid as an income, and then bring in tax professionals to advise you on what to do with the other revenue that's coming in ways that are smart for you tax-wise.
And the retirement, or the putting money away for retirement, starts getting sweet when you have the S Corp writer. Even with the LLC, there's certain tax retirement systems that are become available at higher amounts than if you're a sole proprietor. But for the S Corp writer, you can put away up to $250,000 a year in a 401k, which may not seem like, if you're struggling right now or just getting started, that may be like, what? Why are you telling me that? But say you have this big boom, like 1 year, like 1 month, all of a sudden you break. You
have a launch because you watched SG3 or you came to camp. The launch all of a sudden, makes you $300,000. After you send a thank you check to me and Cathy for helping you be so prosperous with the extra money.
So
I thought that was funny. You didn't laugh at all.
Well, you didn't.
We have to keep this light for them because they're.
I know it's scary stuff.
It's scary stuff.
And I want to just congratulate you for being this far in, because it is, the first time I looked at it, it was like deer in the headlight, and I would like look at it a little bit and come back and keep circling. But you would normally pay taxes on, say, that $300,000 net.
You would have to pay taxes on all $300,000. And if you had a 401k,
you could just,
as a sole proprietor, you can only put up to, is it $4,500 in?
I know as a corporate employee, I can put in $18,000.
But that's
next year.
But that's because you're a corporate employee.
Yeah.
But
so
for those
lower.
Of us who don't,
so
if you're a sex educator and you have a corporate job, then you could take $18,000 in Cathy's situation and put in $18,000 into your 401k. But like if you're me, I don't work for a corporation. I make $300,000. I can only.
It's a very small amount.
It's like $4,500 or something like that, right? So
$5,000 for an IRA, I know.
I can only put that much away and have it be tax free. Whereas if I'm an S corp or corporation, then all of a sudden I could take the majority of that money and throw it into retirement. I can't touch it without major penalties until I'm much older.
But it's tax free.
But you have one huge win. And then you can leapfrog forward in your retirement planning and avoid, in an ethical way, paying taxes on those things. Mm-hmm. So the way that I think of it, and you can feel free to disagree with me, is until you have revenue coming in, or you're starting to move into that place where you have more money than your cost of living, after you pay your expenses, right? So I run camp. Camp is an expensive event to run. Camp brings in this money, but I write a check that goes back out to pay for camp. When you start becoming profitable and you have money left over, this is really, and this is happening consistently, you really need to start thinking about this, because you paying taxes on money that extra money mm-hmm. that you just have in savings that you could put into retirement is a bad business move.
Well, and the tax rate at $300,000, you're paying over probably 35% taxes. Mm-hmm. So you're basically $100,000 is just going to the IRS.
Uncle Sam will love you.
Yes, and then you're putting another chunk towards your state income tax probably. So being able to put $250,000 in your retirement fund per year is huge. It could really set you up to be comfortable, especially if your income's up and down and up mm-hmm. and down. So.
And these are just big reductive ideas, because we're talking about like $300,000, which for most sex educators is unfathomable. Retirement, a retirement 401k situation for me was unfathomable a few years ago. So it's okay to not be good at this kind of thinking.
We just want to introduce the concepts, because if you keep doing the good work you're doing, you can get there. You're building to this, and I want you to be thinking ahead so that you know when to pull the trigger on LLCing and S-corping. If all these things are not happening and you still have an LLC, that's okay too. Some people I would recommend LLC very soon, because your reptile brain will feel better with it. Mm-hmm. You're one of those kinds of people. I started an LLC as soon as I started doing coaching, because there was a chance I could get sued, and I have a house and a retirement and a car and all that. It also made some of the people I was working with business-wise feel more comfortable. Like they were clear that this is my business, that's their business, we're collaborating. It gave them a comfort level. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you have two people who are sole proprietors and you're collaborating a lot on a project, legally, now you're both treated as kind of the same, and it makes things cleaner and easier legally wise. And so these are things that, one, for you, figure out what makes you feel comfortable and empowered, but two, also understand that when you're collaborating with people, figure out what they need as well. And at some point as you grow, you're going to need to do this anyway. Yeah. If you're making a lot of money and you're like, no, I'm going to stay a sole proprietor, you're just not taking advantage of how a lot of the rest of the world's set up.
in ways that you can leverage things, and retirement, compound interest and things like that, and not being taxed on things that you put away for retirement. Those are just really useful things if your belief system around wealth is congruent with existing systems. If you're a complete anarchist, then you can probably stop watching this video right now. It's not of use to you.
Yes. Now, you could form an S Corp directly, but those are very cumbersome and have a ton of paperwork with them. So I don't recommend that. I looked into it. It can be prestigious to some people, and there's a lot you can do. But for most of us, there's just absolutely no reason to do it.
Keep it simple until you're either making so much money or you're positioning your company to, you start putting it into a position where you want to go public or something like that. Mm-hmm. And if you're that kind of person, or congratulations that you got there, and you should be talking to professionals and seeking a lot of different opinions on that.
And one of the reasons I have a financial advisor who recommended the LLC with an S Corp, which is you file an LLC, the S Corp rider comes through the government through IRS. You basically form the LLC through your state, and then you tell the IRS that you want to be taxed as an S Corp. It's an S Corp rider, and there's a specific form you fill out, and then you're ready to go. And when you do your taxes, it's really not that much different because it's still a pass-through entity in the sense that it's your income. You're reported under your Social Security number or EIN, which is tracked to your Social Security number.
So the money that your company makes passes through it to you. This is not super complicated once you start to understand how it works.
Yeah, a C Corp, a regular corporation, like I think IBM, for example. It's a corporation, so when they earn a net income, they pay a tax on it. And then if Reid was an employee, even if he was one of the owners of it, he's considered an employee of the corporation. He would be taxed as well when it was paid to him as well. So that's a double taxation.
And you want to avoid that for now.
But unless you do a C Corp, you're not going to worry about that.
Yeah. So basically, you're looking to either do an LLC or an LLC with an S Corp rider. We're going to advocate that you consider and ask about S Corp riders because it gives you some advantages tax-wise and payment-wise that an LLC can't give you, whereas an LLC gives you legal protection because you have a business entity separated from your personal entity, but all the money that the LLC makes basically still comes to you. Like you get taxed on all of it. Mm-hmm. The S Corp is what allows you to have some other choices for what to do with the money that you don't pay yourself. And it's not like it goes away. You can't hide it. Yeah. But you just have more things that you can do that, depending on your situation, make more sense financially and business-wise. And
as you start getting deeper into this, if you decide to go forward, I've called, when I moved out here, I called a couple different attorneys that were recommended highly on Yelp for small business owners. Mm-hmm. And I talked to them. They usually give you a 15 to 20-minute consultation for free. If you call 5, you might get 2 or 3 that do that. They answered a ton of questions just in the hopes that I would become their client. There's a lot of lawyers out there right now.
There's also your Better Business Bureau and your small business associations in your town and in your cities. Mm-hmm. Those organizations, exist for these purposes. And if you're any good at what you do, and we hope you are by now, you networking your small business organizations is a way for people to get to know your work and know, especially if you coach and see people like you're a sex therapist or a relationship therapist, something like that. Like this is a way for you to expose, market and network what you're doing by going in and asking these other people for their areas of expertise. Yeah. So don't underestimate the power of working your small business associations in your town if you do a lot of in-person, coaching kind of services or you teach workshops in your town.
Yeah. If you decide to go ahead after talking to people, there's a bunch of online places. Most lawyers will actually charge you far more than you need to. You can compare different prices. I think I used my company business or something. There's online places where you can just file right online. And I think I paid $270 to get my LLC created in Dallas, in Texas. So you can consider those. You don't have to have a lawyer to do that necessarily. It's not often that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope this helps.
Yeah, leave some comments. Let us know, if this was useful, what you liked about it, and you can always reach out to us. But again, like the big piece is we're not tax attorneys
or CPAs.
Or CPAs. Go practice talking to other people who do this for a living and having conversations with other peers and people outside your industry just to practice getting more comfortable and so you can learn more about this stuff. For sex geeks, talking about business and legal, that's our version of the stuff that we get freaked out about and clam up about. Whereas, you talking about chlamydia, you're like, you'll do that at Thanksgiving dinner
some
table.
People would rather divorce than talk about it.
Yeah. So, you're doing awesome. Please continue. Ciao.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to subscribe to my social media, it's right there. And please subscribe to this channel there. If you'd like to see more goofy Reid and Cathy, there's more videos there.
See them. Why are they there?